Hello and welcome to GPTV on Tuesday the 6th of August. My name is Philip Kingston.
And I'm Gary Peer.
And Gary, I don't know whether you've noticed anything a little bit different about me today, but as I look at you, what do I see? I see a conservative middle-aged gentleman, as opposed to me where I've adopted new age practices, Gary, and I'm going without tie today. And you're probably wondering why I'm without tie.
Yes, I was wondering why you'd be so unprofessional, Philip.
Well, Gary, I'm without tie, but you'll also notice, and I might just stand up for the camera because quite a suit I'm wearing today. I'm off to Sydney this afternoon for a real estate conference and thought I'd buy this schmick shiny suit and go without tie because I'm off to Sydney. And let's face it, Gary, it's a crass, precocious, out there city. And I thought I would kind of adopt the same sort of dress standard as they run with in Sydney.
Looking very, very Sydney, Phil. A little bit of Austin Powers about you today. In fact, in the sales meeting, you got a bucketing there with that suit. They thought that you'd come straight from a nightclub.
It's very shiny, I've got to tell you, Gary. This is a Hugo Boss number. Yep. I must say, when the salesperson sold it to me, they all were laughing as I left the shop.
But they're dying to get rid of that one, that's for
sure.
I've
got to tell you, I'm off to Sydney, Gary, and interestingly, we're going to have some footage from a Sydney conference that I'm going up to. So next week, I think we'll do a, well, it won't be live, but we're going to do a cross to me being in Sydney, and it should be quite interesting.
Let's talk about things other than your clothes, because quite frankly, I find it very boring, and I think you look very schmoey and unprofessional without a tie.
Schmoey.
Schmoey was
the
Three Stooges used to say that.
Is that in the English dictionary?
It's in the Three Stooges dictionary. Let's talk about the weekend that was, Phil. We had 8 auctions on the weekend, sold 5 out of 8. Wasn't the best weekend, although I think the 6th will sell today.
I've got to tell you, Gary, if the 6th does sell today, then we will be above the industry average. But at this stage, we're actually a little bit below the industry average because we had another great weekend in Melbourne, in excess of 70% clearance. I see Sydney, actually, speaking of Sydney, had an in excess of an 80% clearance rate.
Sydney clearance rates are very high, Phil. They're the short favourites on the sport bet market of backing your favourite state clearance rates, but I'm not advocating gambling, Philip.
No, you're not. But Sydney is a bit of a barometer of the national market. And if Sydney's doing well, that generally does flow through to the rest of the national market.
We haven't got time to review all the auctions, but let's talk quickly about Cranham Street, Phil, because you did that one really well.
I want to talk about that one, Gary, because we talked about in the sales meeting that that was a double story, and we'll bring some footage up as we speak, but that was a double story, 2-story family home. Now, that was a house from the 80s. Now, 50s houses have been popular for many years, so have the 60s. The 70s has been a lot of great press has been given to homes in the 70s. We predicted, and we talked about in the sales meeting this morning, that the 1980s houses tend to be cathedral ceilings, a lot of exposed brickwork. They are back in fashion because people are seeing that they're big and they're strong and they've got great open spaces. Viewers, 1980s homes, you heard it first. That is going to be the new fashion going forward in architecture and certainly in terms of houses that are popular.
A big prediction from Mr. Philip Kingston in his shiny suit.
You do hear it first on GPTV. We do break a lot of real estate stories.
We're making headlines. Where are we now, Philip? We're right here, number 38 Clive Street in East Brighton. How about this house?
Well, Gary, I'd welcome all viewers to Google 38 Clive Street because this house does have its own website. We should talk about the houses with their own websites maybe in a few future editions, but Google 38 Clive Street, Brighton East, and you will go straight into the own website for this property. This is a fantastic family home. Owned, we won't disclose their name, but some property identities that are not just known in Melbourne, but right across at a national level.
And they actually own their own real estate company, Philip, a property company. So for us to get the gig is a great endorsement, and it's a great privilege. But you've got to come through, Phil. You've got to come through.
Amazing family home because this is so beautifully laid out.
Yes,
it's like a brand new home because it's really just a couple. It's really just a couple have lived here. So I'm
8 years. I think
I'm trying to find a chip or a scratch. One of the great features of this house is that first of all, it's on in excess of 1,000 square metres of land.
Big block.
But it's got this incredible indoor swimming pool and this gorgeous. You can see it behind this gorgeous wraparound garden. If you're looking for a family home that you can move into, not spend a cent, this is it.
It's got a beautiful
Not spend a cent once you've moved in. You will have to spend a few cents to
buy. Yes, but it's got an incredible feel, this home, because there's so much garden around you. And even though we're in Brighton East, which in itself is a terrific suburb with cafes around and all of course one of Melbourne's wonderful amenities, but the beautiful thing about this home is only 8 years old, luxuriously appointed, but all of the aspects and the lovely feel of the greenery around it, Philip, it warms my heart.
Okay, I think you've given it a big enough plug, Gary. Let's talk about last week's episode of GPTV,
yes,
because I've had some amazing feedback, yes, about our interview with Enzo, and
yep,
I know that the second part of our show today is going to be the second part of the second part and the final instalment.
That's not actually.
It's not the final instalment. Well, the second part of maybe 3 installments.
Part 2, yeah.
Of our interview with Enzo Raimondo, CEO of the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. I've had some feedback. It's been a whole variety of feedback, generally pretty positive.
It is positive.
Although a number of people rang in to say, how could the CEO of the REIV come on to GPTV? And I've said very simply, look, if he pays enough money, we're happy to talk to him.
Oh yeah, it was great to have Enzo, and there's some fantastic stuff coming up, which we're going to talk about shortly as well when we introduce Enzo back. Before that, Philip, we've got a big weekend of real estate coming up. We've got plenty of auctions. We can't talk about all of them, but we can talk about some of them. This Saturday, Philip, 317A Bamborough Road in Caulfield South.
I love this property, Gary. It's got some really strong architectural detail. It's also livable as it is inside, but it's just waiting for somebody to give it a complete makeover. So good one to come to. Jeremy Rosen's doing that auction.
Is it Jeremy Rosen's or Leo? I'm not sure.
I think it's Jeremy.
I think it might be too. That one's going up at 10:30, Phil, on Saturday. In the afternoon on Saturday, you're going to be in Summers Street, Malvern, a absolute AAA address if there were ever one.
Do you know what? Summers Avenue is a brilliant address and a very popular part of Malvern, and this is a gorgeous architect designed house, and very, very proud to be marketing that one, Gary.
That comes up at 3:30, Philip, on Saturday afternoon. Let's talk a little bit about some of Sunday's auctions. One of the auctions on Sundays at 15 Springfield Avenue in St Kilda East, a former venue of GPTV.
We did shoot GPTV there a couple of weeks ago. That is an amazing house and in an incredible street in the most prestigious part of East St Kilda.
We may be marketing the only 2 houses in Melbourne with indoor pools. This one and of course the one in Springfield Avenue. There you are, a bit of an indoor pool theme. Wouldn't you love to have an indoor pool this time of year, Phil?
I would,
warm
Gary.
yourself up. In Fosbury Avenue in Caulfield North, Philip, you are going to be auctioning that on Sunday afternoon to conclude the weekend.
Gary, I'd love as many viewers to come along to that auction as possible because that auction is going to go off. We've had a huge amount of interest in this.
And so we should have.
It would look a single-storey villa in the heart of the Golden Mile of Caulfield North. If that doesn't get high appeal, then nothing will. But I think we've got 3 or 4 bidders on that one, Gary, so I'm expecting some strong competition.
I hope you do a good job. I'm sure you will. That's Sunday afternoon at 1:30 p.m. It's time, Phil, to flip over to Enzo Raimondo, who's going to talk about lots of interesting things, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things he's going to talk about is the marketplace, which is great. He's going to talk about who's buying on the market, the influences of people who are purchasing from overseas. He's going to talk a bit about the block, but only for a minute, and then he's going to talk about the danger of low-fee real estate agents, and that's something that I think is an interesting one as well, which actually he kind of introduced that theme, not us, but I thought that was also interesting. And also, print media, is it relevant? Let's find out from Enzo Raimondo.
So, Gary, this is the second part of 3 parts, is it?
It is, but we were going to keep it a secret that there was a 3rd part, but you've let the cat out of the bag.
There we go.
Again, over to Enzo.
So firstly, Enzo, I know a lot of viewers will be interested in this. Is the market, where do you see the market? Do you think it's going to go up? Have prices risen? Have they dropped? Are we flat? Are we affected by the GFC? What's going on? Where are we at the moment, do you think?
Okay, well let me give you a bit of a 30-second history.
Yep.
We've had obviously what they called the global financial crisis, where in 2008 things went down, in 2009-10 they went back up again, and they've gone back down, and we've been sort of sitting down the bottom of the market. In fact, in 2012, last year was the last number of transactions since 1996.
Yeah, we felt
2012?
Yeah.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
There was,
I know why we suffered.
it was a tough year, 2012. Anyway, the good news is this, and you would have heard on the weekend as well, that Melbourne is showing some really strong signs of moving forward.
Yes.
Most suburbs are performing quite well. Obviously, you know, you've got a certain space in Melbourne, or certain
corridor or areas.
Corridors or areas or zones, but there's only a limited supply of land. And what we've got in Melbourne at the moment is we've got an increasing population coming from overseas and interstate. We've got property prices moving upwards. I think the second half of 2013 are going to show some fairly strong to moderate growth, and I think next year will be even stronger. Which suburbs? You'd have to say the ones that you work in are always going to be in demand because of their scarcity and the type of properties that are in those areas. But look, I think 15 to 20 k's of the CBD in any direction is going to be good. And then there are those people who obviously want the quarter-acre block and a new two-storey home that need to go out a bit further. But the signs are that every part of Melbourne is going well. Obviously, the closer to the CBD, the stronger the growth.
Yes. Now, look, the big news, I mean, I think you're right, and thanks for your comment there, but the biggest news of all is, of course, the block was on last night. Now, I don't watch the block, but I did watch it last night because it was a final, and I like to see the auctioneers, and congratulations to Malcolm Dingle and his team because they won it.
Did they?
Anton won it, he did a great job.
Yeah.
What do you think that does for people's perception of real estate? And also, by the way, it was very interesting that everyone made money on that one, because the one in Richmond was it was really when things were in the doldrums.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of real estate shows, there's $1 million listing and New York listing, and it's become very, very interesting for people. And all of a sudden, because when I got into real estate, 30 years ago, it wasn't a very
glamorous.
Well, it wasn't very glamorous, and I wouldn't say it's glamorous now, but it wased that interesting.
Well,
but
it's glamorous now. There's TV shows, and you
BMW
can be
driving.
BMW. You could be a superstar estate agents commenting on the market. And,
that's it.
But look, I think they're really good shows for making people aware of what they can do to property. I think they oversimplify things a little bit. It's a bit like, Australia's Got Talent or some of those shows. It makes it look very easy that you can sing, but it's a lot of hard work. So I suspect the same with these real estate shows. They'll show you what it looked like, and then before they started, and then during the process, and what it looks like at the end. But in between, I'm sure there are a whole lot of other tragedies and things that occurred.
Well, we see our share of terrible renovations, so we know it's not an easy game.
Can I talk about one thing that I think is really important? Can I put a subject or a topic on the table?
Yeah, please.
People talk about, and I get these letters and comments from people, agents charge too much, for selling property. And I think, the GPTV viewers should know this. In the US, it's 6% of the selling price for an agent. In Europe, and in France in particular, anything under 800,000 euros is about 6% or 7%, and then above 800,000 euros, it's 1% lower.
Wow.
And in France, I'll give you the opening times or working hours of the estate agents. 9 till 12 and 3 till 7, 5 days a week.
How's your French, Phil?
Wow. And
that's why I want to move to
eat as many baguettes and cheese and
fromage in the afternoon. That's right.
But you see, that's the difference in Paris or in France. They're professionals. They're viewed as professionals. They don't, you don't have the media getting stuck into them, and they charge a professional fee for their service.
Wow.
Here, I know that there's fierce competition to get a listing, fierce competition on commissions, and look, people will get 2 or under 2 or above 2, depending on where they are.
It's kind of the old benchmark.
And what you've got to do is, if you want a really good agent, you've got to pay for them. It's like anything.
Yeah. Well, I remember many years ago when Jeff Gold was the president of the ROV, and all the complaints came through here. Now there's a few different places people can go to, but I remember whenever he spoke to people who were dissatisfied, they were just about all given a very big discounted rate, and it was one of those trends that came through, which was interesting.
I think if you choose your agent based on price alone, then you probably need to rethink that decision.
So Enzo, one of the big questions, I guess, and we're in the business, sometimes we think we're in the business of advertising, not real estate, because we're out there explaining to vendors what they need to invest in to get the best price. And we do our own analysis, and we have our own data, and we know what works. But just in terms of your overall view, in terms of macro perspective, what do you think about print media? I mean, do people still need to advertise in there? What's the future hold for that?
Look, if you compare Australia with Europe and America, they've gone to mostly digital with small classified ads in their local areas. Look, it's horses for courses, I suspect, but I would say that internet is going to play a big part in advertising property for a number of reasons. It's not static, so you can have video, you can overlay a property details page with what schools are in the area, with previous sales history, a whole range of things that you can't get on a static page in a magazine or a newspaper. But having said that, I think there's still some space for local print.
Yep.
But I think more and more people, as they use tablets and mobile phones and apps and a whole range of things, will go onto digital.
Yeah.
And I think we'll find there'll be digital publications as opposed to online classified sites. Publications, I'm talking about not just replicating, say, a magazine and making it online, but actually having a fully digital magazine which has community information, schools, maybe the crime rates that are low compared to somewhere else, parks, you know, what people want to know about an area, about the community before they make their mind to live in it.
Yeah, good point. I mean, a lot of people do, I guess, buy within the area that they're living anyway, don't they? So it has become...
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're seeing, really, when it comes to print, we're seeing the decline of the metropolitan daily newspaper, but I think we're starting to see the increase of the local newspaper becoming more effective.
I think that's right. I think that's correct. And whether that local newspaper stays in print or becomes digital is the point in the next few years.
So that's a wrap for GPTV. Good to see part 2 of a 3-part series with Enzo Raimondo.
Good to hear from Enzo again.
Gary, next week, I don't know whether we'll do the 3rd part or not, but next week we're going to be coming to you from the conference that I'm going to in Sydney, and I'm really looking forward to that.
We wish you a good week, a good real estate week. I'm Gary Peer. Look forward to seeing you next time.
I'm Philip Kingston. Have a great week.
Bye now.